The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, how you doing?
I'm good, buddy. Let's do it. We got 25 questions.
We got lots of things to get to. Mailbag. We're doing a mailbag this week. We've got to the point of the off season where it's time to take sort of the temperature of the people who listen to this podcast and see what they want us to talk about. So thank you to everyone who gave us questions on our Twitter account. Let's get right to it.
If I point out you are feeling down about the fact that you're not included in this mailbag and want the opportunity to potentially be involved in the next round, whenever that may be, follow us on Twitter if you don't already at the Timeline Pod.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, Sam, let's get right to it. First one is from an account named NBA Simp. His @ is at NBA Simp 19, and I think we've covered this a little bit, but let's get right to it. What do you think of signing CP3 for the next 4 years? Which is, I think, probably a question related to the fact that he's getting older, and that's a pretty long contract for someone his age. What do you think?
That's misleading info because it's not a fully guaranteed 4-year contract. That's where I'd start with Mr. Simp, but I mean, like, we've discussed it before, right? It's totally what they had to do, totally on board with it. What were you going to do? Let him walk?
Yeah.
Great signing.
Every off-season plan that I came up with, and I try everything just to see what's out there. Every off-season, this is how I get in trouble every off-season as well. But every single plan that I came up with started with re-signing Chris Paul. There was sort of no scenario where I thought the Suns were in a better position without re-signing Chris Paul. Now, if he chose to leave, that's a different story. But after making the finals, I was pretty confident he was going to stay. Having said all that, I think the deal that they signed him to, which is guaranteed for 2 years, $30 million each year essentially, and then partially guaranteed for the third year, so they can cut him after 2 years and only pay him $10 million, which doesn't really, at that point, doesn't really affect the Suns at all. And then his fourth year could just fall off the books at that point. That's probably the best possible situation for the Suns. It's really only like $16 million, $17 million more in those first 2 years than he would have made just next year had he opted into his final year of his previous contract. So I think it's a really, really great deal by James Jones and the Suns, and I'm glad to have Chris Paul coming back. I know he did have surgery on his wrist. I hope he does come back fully healthy when the season starts. It seems like he will be. And then it's up to the Suns and up to him to keep him as healthy as possible for the playoffs, to make the best possible run in the playoffs. Which
I think we certainly have more questions kind of addressing that. Like,
yes,
I don't question Chris Paul's health going into the season. I question what the Suns are going to do about mitigating the risk of future re-injury. So we'll see. But
yes, I agree. All right, let's go on to the next one here. This is by Hoyt, who is at Speef and Cheddar. He says, is it likely we see a significant enough leap from Devin Booker early to mid-season to rouse enough confidence in fans that we could be looking at a return to the NBA Finals? So this is essentially a question related to the absolute top talent of our team. Can Devin Booker essentially become an MVP candidate for the Suns in order for fans to be more confident they're making the NBA Finals? So I just want to say one thing on this before I let you answer here, Sam. I think the confidence part of this question related to whether or not fans believe we will make the NBA Finals. I think there are a lot of fans that already think that the Suns can make the NBA Finals. Now, I want to say that I think that's partially related to the state of the NBA in this upcoming season, in that Kawhi Leonard is injured, so the Clippers are sort of taken out as a potential contender unless he comes back fully healthy by the end of the season. Jamal Murray is injured, so for the Nuggets, that takes out one of their most important players. That takes the Nuggets out of the equation. The Lakers are old, and Klay Thompson is coming back from 2 major injuries. So when you're looking at the potential for the Phoenix Suns to make the NBA Finals, I think for a lot of fans, their confidence is related to the fact that the West is kind of in a little bit of a rough shape currently. And while I think that they are right to be confident because of that, I think that's not really the best way to be confident about a team returning to the NBA Finals. It'd be nice if we were confident that they could, even with everyone healthy, which I think a lot of people would be less confident in. So I guess on to the question. What do you think about the potential of a Devin Booker leap in order to make the Suns a solidified contender?
I don't know what Suns fans think a leap from Devin Booker at this point looks like exactly. I mean, obviously he can get better. He's a top 15 player right now. We're talking about him basically in order to achieve the level of confidence that I think you're referring to, Mike, he would need to be a classic top 5, top 6, top 7 player in the NBA. So he already averages 26 points per game. He's already been doing that for 3 years straight. What is the benchmark that he needs to get to? Is it become a 30-point per game scorer on, 60-something% true shooting? Is it not a statistical benchmark at all, but is it something like more intangible? Like, I think there's ways he can add to his game. I've talked about him becoming a better pull-up three-point shooter forever, but I don't know. Like, what do you think a leap looks like for him at this point?
Yeah. And, I'll be honest, I think you and I have some plans in the future to get into that in more detail. So I think I'll save specifically what that can look like because I think that actually deserves kind of a longer conversation. But as far as whether or not I believe that something like that could happen, I think there's a possibility. Now, just to touch on one thing as an example, like Russell Westbrook, for example, had one season, maybe 2 seasons, where he shot really well from 3. And I think a lot of players that are maybe not the best 3-point shooters like Devin Booker, 34% on 5.5 attempts, it's not really that bad. I think some people sort of exaggerate his 3-point shooting and make it sound worse than it is. But say he has 1 season, 2 seasons in a row where he shoots closer to 40% or at that 40% mark. That alone, I think, could make a big difference, especially if a lot of those come off the dribble, as you're talking about. Maybe that happens 1 or 2 seasons in a row. That sort of propels him into an MVP level conversation, depending on how the rest of the team fares. So, yeah, I think it's possible. I think it's definitely something that we could see. And I think the way he worded it as early to mid-season is interesting to me because he tends to play better towards the end of the season. So if Devin Booker starts off the season playing lights out, on fire, extremely well, I think that bodes well for the Suns because he usually improves as the season rolls along. So I think for him, if it's something that's going to happen, I think maybe we will see that, or maybe we will get a feeling on that early to mid-season. So it's possible. I don't know how confident I am. I'd say it's possible. Mm-hmm. Anything else on that one?
No, I mean, that was interesting about early to mid-season. It sets the tone for the entire MVP discussion. I know he didn't say in his question, like specifically the idea of Devin Booker being an MVP, but depending on how many minutes Chris Paul is logging and if he's getting fewer shot reps, maybe his wrist doesn't feel 100%. If Booker starts off strong, it's interesting just how those first 15, 20, 25 games can set the tone for all of the discourse that follows sometimes. We'll see.
Yeah, very true. People love talking about Devin Booker in the offseason, right?
Absolutely. A little bit too much for my liking.
There's this meme, I think it's from Pokemon, where like the guy's looking at a butterfly and he says, "Is this?"
Oh, yeah.
I feel every team looks at their star player and they say, "Is this better than Devin Booker?" That's just that's just how they view their off seasons. They want to compare him to somebody, and because of the sort of state of NBA viewers in that there's so many box score watchers as people just stare at stats, they find that Devin Booker's 3-point percentage isn't as high as they thought, and they use that as a reason to say that whatever player they like is better than him. It's just a remarkable thing that people do in the offseason. It's never going to end, I guess. I've come to accept that. I thought maybe it would end after they made it to the finals. It's not the case. No. It is what it is.
Win a real ring.
Yes. At Ozbek Yilmazturk. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. His name on Twitter is name cannot be blank. He said, talk about what you think. Is he a reporter? Reporters usually start their questions as talk about. But he says, talk about what you think this Sun season, when you think this Sun season will come to an end.
Bad reporters, I might add. That's like journalism 101 is don't do that.
First round, second round, third round, or finals. Hopefully not even at the finals. They would win the finals ideally. It's too early to say for me. I'd say I think the Suns have a shot, even if they go into the season with this team and the flexibility to make some minor moves throughout the season. They have a shot to make the NBA Finals. I think things would have to break in their favor in a lot of ways. But I would say it's too early to say. What do you think?
We're still waiting on the magic move, man. Right now, I would probably peg the Suns as roughly an 8th or 9th seed. But if they sign Jared Vanderbilt with that 15th spot, like I want them to do, then they're definitely title favorites, I would say. So,
well, I'm glad you gave people something to take out of context and use against you for the entire season.
Yeah, they're just gonna crop off the first half of the quote and post it to my Please don't do that.
Let me ask you this. Let me phrase this question a little differently.
Sure.
What would you consider a disappointment for the Suns? I mean, obviously missing the playoffs is that, but say they make the playoffs.
Yeah, it kind of depends on the context in which it happens. Like, are they full strength? Then it's kind of disappointing if they don't make the second round or make the conference finals. I mean, it's disappointing if they don't repeat, you know what I mean? But if they do face the injury bug a little bit more this year and have to face some adversity, I don't know. It's really just there's too much context surrounding that question. What's a disappointment? I think a lot of Western Conference fans are going to be disappointed this year. There's 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. This is the beauty of parity, but there's 7 teams that really think they may as well be a favorite for at least the Western Conference Finals. Yeah, which means 5 out of those 7 teams are going to be disappointed.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that, and I think I'm glad you mentioned health there. The Suns were really healthy last season, especially relative to the rest of the league. And if they can remain that healthy, a lot of it will depend on sort of the matchups, just like you said. I think a first-round loss would be disappointing regardless of the matchups or whatever it is. You can debate second round and beyond at that point, but yeah, it depends on how things shake out for the rest of the league and what the teams look like that are facing the Suns at that point.
DeAndre Ayton played every single game in the regular season except for the final 3 and then every available game in the playoffs. I think it's just a really underrated thing. Now that Šarić is out with his torn ACL, the big man depth for the Suns being what it is right now, this should be obvious to people, but there should be that underlying understanding of just how bad it could get if the wrong person tweaks their ankle. And I think for the Suns, that's mostly DeAndre Ayton, given the pivotal role that he plays. I mean, it's obviously
Chris Paul
always too. It's always Chris Paul, it's always Devin Booker, but yeah.
I think with Chris Paul, there's the added fear of he's the old man on the team at this point, so you got to keep him as healthy as possible. And that's related to this next question, actually, from Tyler, is his name, at Tyler Roundbush. He says, do y'all think the Suns will take a more conservative approach towards the final weeks of the regular season, consistent rest for Devin Booker, Chris Paul, other starters? Essentially saying, do you think the Suns will do something that they did not do last year, and that's sort of be more aware of their health going into the playoffs? Now, I want to just say the Suns were healthy going into the playoffs outside of DeAndre Ayton, who was a little bit of a question mark. I think it was an ankle or something towards the end of the year. But he ended up being healthy as well. I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt they're going to do this. What do you think?
Yeah, I doubt they're going to do it too, but I kind of hope they do now that they're one of those more proven. I mean, it's weird to say this after just one run, but if they're a more proven, experienced playoff team, I kind of like the Lakers approach of being that veteran playoff team that doesn't give a shit about the regular season, coasts a little bit. I think the Suns are in a situation now where they could maybe stand to benefit from that sort of attitude. I don't know if they'll really approach things that way, but they need to be healthy. Anything that keeps them healthy is cool in my book.
Teams that rest don't necessarily just do it at the end of the year now. It's sort of spread out throughout the entire season, so if they have some sort of resting plan, I would prefer it to be that, giving Chris Paul the second night of a back-to-back off, that kind of thing. It would help a lot if they got out to if they won a lot of games early in the season, so they kind of were not concerned. It depends on how the rest of I think home court advantage is important to the Suns. And, you know, Chris Paul was just on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, and he said something like, show me someone that's okay with losing, and I'll show you a loser.
Yeah.
You know, to him, it's a mentality about wanting to win every single game. The regular season is not necessarily just about playoff seeding. It's about getting the right mentality about what a winner is going into the playoffs. So he just doesn't seem like the guy who likes to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a tough sell for Chris Paul, and so that's why I think it won't happen. But the Suns have the benefit of going into the season. One of their main advantages is basically them and Utah have so much continuity flowing from year to year that, you know, typically that's kind of an excuse that you fall back on. Well, we don't want to rest guys because we want to have the maximum amount of continuity going into the playoffs. I don't think that's as much of a consideration this year. I really think they can afford to rest guys. But we'll see. It's a tough sell.
All right, Serge at Surging Suns said, if you could guarantee one of the guys besides Book spends the rest of his career here, who would it be? Essentially asking a question designed to get us in trouble. Who would you pick as the other guy besides Devin Booker to spend the rest of his career in Phoenix?
It changes every day. It changes every day. And today feels like a Mikal Bridges day. I won't lie. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like coming off the respective playoff performances that those two guys had, that might be the wrong answer.
Right.
I'm not sure. What are you feeling today?
Well, I do think it's funny that the question essentially is choose between Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton. And it's funny that you read it as that immediately because, like, Chris Paul is technically going to spend the rest of his career here. So I could just cop out and say Chris Paul because that's going to happen.
I mean, it's not like I'm going to say Jalen Smith, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean, who else is there? There's Cameron Johnson.
There's Cam Johnson. That's basically
which I think there is like a sect of Zoomers who are very into Cam Johnson for some reason. That I've
Zoomers?
Noticed. Yeah.
You've noticed that this is a Zoomer?
I have.
I don't think so, dude. What makes Cam Johnson a Zoomer thing? Cam Johnson is by far not a Zoomer. He's much older than
No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I've noticed a correlation between the people who are very overly attached to Cameron Johnson and them being a little bit younger for whatever reason. I'm not sure what that is. But I like Cameron Johnson as well. But I do think that it does boil down to Mikal Bridges or DeAndre Ayton. And I agree with you that in a lot of ways it changes. In a way, I do feel like Mikal Bridges getting a lower contract makes the flexibility that you have with somebody like him makes it a little easier, but that hasn't even happened yet. So we don't even know what's going to happen with these guys as far as what they're going to be paid.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess I would probably choose Mikal Bridges too, but it depends on the day as well. I might choose DeAndre Ayton as well. I think that this next year and the development out of both of those guys and what they become and what they're going to be and the trajectory of their careers, you know, the answer that you have at the end of this coming season will probably be much more definitive. And I think what's interesting about that question is that it's pretty close right now.
How would you describe that development, Mike, if you had to give it a word?
Hashtag internal development. Is that what you're talking about?
That's interesting.
I'm knocking my mic over. We'll get more into what those guys can do later. I think we have some plans for that. But next question from Alex Golden at Alex Golden NBA. Is JaVale McGee the best backup center the Suns could have gotten, or would they have been better going after Cody Zeller, Andre Drummond? And I think those are just names you put in there. It could have been any of the other backup centers that signed as well. What do you think?
Alex did not, and this is not his fault, he's a Pacers guy. He did not watch my video series about free agents. I think obviously JaVale is not the best. Like, come on, we don't have to lie to ourselves. He's not the best backup center who is available on the market. I think the Suns could have gotten better guys, but for the most part, you get what you pay for. And we saw Nerlens Noel go for, I believe it was full mid-level exception. We saw Daniel Tice go for full mid-level exception. So they fell back.
Zeller signed for a minimum.
Zeller signed for a minimum, and I think that's really interesting. I think Cody Zeller was one of the best. I still think Portland had, they didn't do nearly as much as they should have, although the Larry Nance thing spiced things up a little bit in the past couple weeks, but they mostly had a bust of an offseason, I think. However, Cody Zeller for $2 million, great signing for them. I really thought he was a guy who could go for at least half, if not the full mid-level exception. Would have been really happy for the Suns to scoop him up in that price range, so oh well. But JaVale gives you more athleticism. So if the Suns are specifically looking for rim protection, and defense, and they were tired of like Dario's pump fakes and having his layup attempts, swatted out of the stratosphere and whatever, and just wanted someone who's like a true leaper. Then prioritizing JaVale over Cody. Zeller, it's whatever. That makes sense to me.
Here's what I'll say.
That's a great value, though. Cody for $2 million really is great value. The other name that Alex mentioned, Andre Drummond, no interest on my end.
Well, yeah, I was just start there. JaVale McGee's better than Andre Drummond in my mind, and I don't know that that's even close. But beyond that, like you could group all the other backup centers together, JaVale McGee, Nerlens Noel, Cody Zeller, whoever else you want to put in that sort of bucket, Daniel Tice, and they're none of them stand out as better than the rest to me. They're all the exact same tier of players, backup bigs. And in a way, I think JaVale McGee sort of fits the proper role of like DeAndre Ayton replacement, right? If he comes into the game and DeAndre Ayton's out, he fits that role better than any of them could have in a lot of ways. And I think that for the Suns, he might be the perfect fit as a backup center.
Yeah.
I thought that James Jones was going to go with more versatility because when he did that with Aaron Baines and then again with Dario Saric, it seemed like he valued that. I would guess that Chris Paul had more of a say in this JaVale McGee signing just based on what I've heard about it and based on what Chris Haynes wrote about it than previous signings, and that he wanted somebody like JaVale McGee in this backup position. And I think he's a really good fit, and he's going to be really good. And none of the other guys make me sad that we have JaVale. I'll be honest.
They don't make me sad, but I do think I do consider Daniel Tice, for example, just like in a different tier than JaVale, because I think once we get to the playoffs again, if DeAndre Ayton misses any substantial time this year, we're going to quickly realize it's a problem. It would have been a problem regardless of who they signed, but it would be much less of a problem. Like Daniel Tice or Nerlens Noel could do the Aaron Baines thing where they step in for 25 games if that's what it took and start, and you don't notice like such a colossal drop off that you're dipping below 500 in those games. JaVale, if he has to start 25 games for the Suns this year, I'm worried. I'll say that. I think he's a great guy.
About the Frank Kaminsky minutes.
I think he's well, I'll be worried about those point, too, obviously. Yeah. I think JaVale's a great guy to plug in for 10 or 15 minutes. I think if you need him to play more than 20, it's an issue. So
I think that's fair. That's fair. In that Tice is a guy that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I just think defensively, not as good. There's just none of them make me sad, I guess. Alex also asked about the predictions for the Western Conference standings. I'm going to say let's save that.
Oh, I was going to say it's kind of...
Oh, no, if you have something, go ahead.
That's fine. It's just like, I thought maybe you'd want to touch on it.
I don't really
Is it too early to touch on it?
I haven't done enough research in it to feel confident in whatever I would say. I think there's a chance that the Suns and the Jazz are in the same positions they were in last year.
I just said...
Beyond that, I haven't really thought much about it.
Well, I was going to say that too. I think the Suns and Jazz could be 1 and 2 again. But even beyond that, like, is it crazy? I mean, I guess this is just my initial impression of the conference. But like, remember what I just said? The Lakers don't care about the regular season. And before when I saw that this question came in from Alex, I was like, let me check out the over-unders again, see what Vegas is saying. The Lakers are projected the first seed in the Western Conference right now.
Which I don't think.
I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. They're going to be a great team. Don't get me wrong. And they're going to
figure it out. I think they'll be bad if LeBron misses games, though. Like,
so,
even with all the things that they did, I think they'll be bad.
Well, they'll be bad if LeBron misses games. But also, like, just think about what the first 20 games of the season is going to look like for the Lakers. There are going to be close games for the Lakers at the beginning of the season where one of two things is happening. Either Russ is out there. It's going to be the three of them playing together. And either Russ is doing too much, he's doing way too much in the fourth quarter. That's option A. That's kind of been like the classic Russ move, is he's doing too much. Or option B is he's doing nothing at all. And by that, I don't just mean like Russ is on the court and LeBron and AD are taking all the shots, but it's an issue because Russ is like also not spacing the floor for them in a way that's, actually efficient for your offense. So I think, they're going to figure it out eventually. They've got a ton of star talent, star power, obviously, but they're going to struggle at the beginning. They just are. Like, I guess what I'm saying is it wouldn't surprise me if the Lakers, not only if they were not the first seed, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Lakers go into the playoffs as one of the favorites to win the title, but are like a fifth seed.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be a play-in range. I think they're going to...
They're not going to be...
It's going to matter more to them to not be that than maybe last year.
And then when you consider the Jamal Murray injury and the Klay Thompson factor, part of me is almost like could Dallas be like a sneaky third seed this year?
Yeah.
I think Dallas could be like, we could have like a situation where the Western Conference goes like Utah, Phoenix, or Phoenix, Utah. I think they're mostly interchangeable. And then like Dallas third. And you've got basically every national writer. We go into playoff time with those three as the top three. And every national writer writes those three off and says, nope, Lakers. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I could see that as well. Beyond that, trying to pick the end of the Western Conference, first of all, it's going to be very injury dependent. But maybe we could do something like that later, just sort of look at it and see what we think. But let's move on. Nathan Hamblin said, at Nathan Hambone, I think this is a really interesting question and a really good way to word it. Will we be a better team with a worse record? And that sort of, the implication of that is it possible that the Suns could improve, but you won't see it in the stat sheet because of maybe injuries or other teams improving around them and causing them to lose some more games? And, and sort of looking at last season as something that sort of worked out in a way for the Suns where they won a ton of games, catching people off guard a little bit. But what do you think about that question?
Is it lame? Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah. I didn't ask a question, but
to contextualize this, has that ever, what he's describing there, has that ever happened in Suns history before? You've got a team 1 or 2 years later that's worse statistically, but a better team. Has that ever happened to the Suns before?
I don't know. I'd have to look back. That's kind of an interesting question. I don't really have the records memorized for the Suns because I'm thinking win-loss record when he talks about obviously the worst record. But better team, I think in his sense, is talking about maybe going into the playoffs next year with the amount of improvement from the younger guys and obviously someone set in JaVale McGee as a backup.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's possible. Like, I think if the Suns have a worse record, like they were, first of all, the Suns were winning at a 57 win rate. That's how many wins they won in a 72-game season. The over-under is about 52 wins that we've seen so far. So it's sort of projecting the Suns to have a worse record, or at least the bet where they expect you to bet on is significantly worse as far as win-loss percentage. And I think it's possible the Suns win less games, but it wouldn't make me necessarily less confident in them going into the playoffs than last year.
So I think it's totally possible, but just like probabilistically, the only way people in hindsight are going to look at the 2022 Suns as better than the 2021 Suns is if they go further in the playoffs. The only way for them to go further is winning the whole damn thing. So it's totally possible. They can absolutely win the finals this year. It's totally possible. But like, are they, do they have a greater than 50% chance of doing that? No, I wouldn't say so because there's so many contenders.
ESPN wrote an article about the Suns last week that basically was titled, "Can the Suns stay as healthy as they were last season?" And I think they used the word like unusually healthy to describe the Suns.
That sucks. That kind of sucks.
and it's true. Like statistically, as far as games lost to injuries, the Suns were one of the teams with the least amount of games lost to injuries last season. So there's another factor of this where the Suns could have some minor injuries throughout the season, and hopefully just minor, that affect the win-loss record, where they still could be a better team going into the end of the season. So they were unusually healthy last season, so that's factored into the way I think about this as well. So we'll see. Hopefully no injuries, though. All right. Suns fan Zach, at Suns fan Zach, said, "Are you going to do a timeline episode on this last season like you did your first episode about the 2010 season?" So it's actually our 10th episode. A lot of work, I'm sure, but I think he wants to hear it.
Long-time listener there. Thank you, Zach. Shout out to you.
Yes. Here's what I'll say. For those who haven't heard it, go back if you want. Our 10th episode we ever did was a documentary-style episode. Narrative-based podcast is actually what they've become known as, about the 2010 season. And I'll say this, no, not anytime soon. It's mostly me that will have to do the work there. Sorry, Sam, to call you out. But the main reason is not that I wouldn't find it interesting. I think it would be fascinating. But I think a lot of Suns fans are sort of in the like we would almost need to wait for this era to end in order to properly reflect back on that as a fan base.
Absolutely. Because
it's still happening, right? Because we're sort of still in that era, it doesn't feel right to look back yet in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we can look back on it in the short term, which is what we do week to week, but a retrospective, real podcast doesn't make any sense right now. If we're still kicking it in 10 years, call us then, I would say.
Yeah.
And what I will say about it is, remember, Mike, like, even tracking down clips that like existed on really old, outdated, archived web pages to download like audio files and video files for the old one, the last episode, was really difficult because the internet like was still weirdly kind of in its infancy, not in its infancy, but it was still like in its adolescence in 2010. It wasn't that easy to find stuff in 2010. A lot of like NBA teams still weren't on YouTube in 2010. So you found grainy shit. And whereas now, if we tried to actually like collect all the stuff to put together about a 2020 team, I think there's just so much out there. I think it would be fascinating. But that will be for 2030 and beyond. So wait for then, and we'll figure it out.
All right. At Durag Hoops, friend of ours. Since we're closer to football season, do you guys enjoy watching? Do you play fantasy? What are your favorite teams? Even if the fandom isn't nearly as strong as the Suns, I'll just quickly answer mine. I watch. I think wording the question is, do you enjoy watching? I don't know that like if it wasn't on at Sunday morning, like if it was on at the same time as other things, I'd probably watch something else. But like football's on at the time of day for me, and it's the Cardinals. I watch the Cardinals. That I think really kind of works out well for them, and that nothing else is on. And I'll watch football. Do I enjoy it? Sometimes. I think that as a TV product, it's sort of overrated. I think that you miss this is one of the things that drives me crazy about football. You miss half the things that are happening. The camera shows you what it wants to show you. It doesn't show you the receivers running the routes. It doesn't often show you what the defenders are doing in the backfield. Like, it's a weird thing where people have these really strong opinions about football, fans, and they don't even see half the game. They just see really the line and the quarterback and then wherever the football flies after that. And then they make these really strong, really strong opinions about the team and who's playing well and who's playing not. Like, how do you even know?
Are you suggesting we don't kind of do the same thing?
Yeah, but at least with basketball, you see basically everything.
That's true. You can actually see every player and their movement. Yeah.
It's a bizarre thing with football where you don't even see it. And so for me, it's tough for me to get into it. And I like being a fan of things. And what I mean by that is when I'm into something, I'm like really, really, really into it. So I can't really get there with football. So I've just sort of casually watching. I count on you guys often on Twitter to fill me in on what's happening. So I appreciate you guys for doing that. I watch, not super into it. I watch because it's on. What do you think, Sam?
Sunday afternoons are a barren wasteland on Twitter for me as I sort through all of your Cardinals takes. So about football, like I kind of feel like football is one of those things where, like you grow up watching it with your dad, right? And if you don't do that, then you're not a football fan. If you do that, then you're a football fan, right? Yeah. And for me, my dad's like an immigrant from a part of the world where everyone plays soccer, which is as you guys know, the vast majority of the world, most of the world. So it's like I didn't grow up watching football. So like now I'm an adult and I watch football casually. I live in Bills country, so I watch Bills games with my friends casually, and it's fun. But I'm not a football person at all. I play fantasy football because like I feel like I'm supposed to, but I don't really know what I'm doing. And that's that's about that. I feel like basketball is so much easier for people to just like get into from a young age or really any stage of their life, just like because you know what it would this question is forcing me to confront like why I'm a basketball fan and not a football fan. It's like before I ever was a Suns fan, you go out like as a little kid and during school, and it's like recess or it's after school or whatever, and it's like you go outside and there's kids playing basketball, and you're like, oh, that looks like a game that I want to learn the rules of. Let me go and learn it. And you learn it. But there's not like a pickup football culture in the U.S. because that would just be really fucking hard to organize. So I feel like that's what makes people struggle with it so much. But if you're like a real red-blooded American type who's like, you know, very much a traditionalist about that sort of stuff, then yeah, I mean, all the power to you. I enjoy watching football casually, but it's just not like I'm not like a diehard. Probably never will be. Too focused on ball for that.
Soccer and basketball have the lowest barrier of entry for people to play.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
So you only need the ball, and like for basketball, you need a hoop. For soccer, you just need like 2 trash cans, and you can play soccer.
Yeah.
For football, you need the pads. Like you need a large amount of people to properly play. You need a bigger field. Like there's lots of things that you need to get to in order to get to play it. And that's why often communities that are poorer are more often they more often play soccer, they more often play basketball. So it's like a socioeconomic thing.
Feels weird to say socioeconomically even because like we know tons of poor people still play football, but that's because there's this ingrained culture in the US that gives schools, you need the infrastructure to build the teams entirely. And I guess in a lot of areas of the developing world, they don't have that infrastructure to begin with. So there can be kids just on the street playing soccer, playing basketball with basically anything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Tyler Fay said, if you could make a rule change that you think would improve the on-court product for the league, what would it be? I have a few things, but I'd like to hear what you think.
Well, can we start, we've mentioned this before, but can we start again by applauding the NBA on supposedly the changes they're implementing this year? Awesome stuff. Just getting rid of kind of the foul baiting from offensive players. Really excited to see it in action in preseason. I'm probably going to complain about it on like one of our preseason episodes about like, they said they were going to do this. Why aren't they doing this? I, despite that, have one idea that's out there that I wonder if you'll indulge me on. So if I was the commissioner, if I was Adam Silver, this would make a lot of people really mad, I think, but it would be like, so one of the things that I think is so brilliant about the G League with its current status as the NBA is you can use the G League to experiment with stuff. Like, right, like you can change the rules in the G League, experiment with it there. They did that with something recently, didn't they? When they changed the shot clock from 24 seconds to 14 seconds after an offensive rebound. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. That was like
challenges started in the G League too.
That was like 2 years ago. They did all of that in the G League for the year prior to installing it in the NBA. So my idea, this would really piss off everyone in the G League because it would be catastrophic, honestly. And it would especially like it would get every agent of like a 2-way contract player who's moving back and forth between the two systems would be basically sending me death threats. But I would eliminate the corner 3 at the G League level for a full season just to see what happens.
I love that. It's very Kirk Goldsberry of you.
It's very Kirk Goldsberry of me, who wrote like it's an entire passage in his book about it for those who don't know. That's why Mike's saying that. But it's like, imagine, like so often we talk about like, okay, so we're in modern basketball now. We've got like Morey Ball. Everyone has embraced Morey Ball. 3-and-D role players who like are not necessarily all that skilled. They kind of just get paid a lot of money to be athletic and hit corner threes. And it's like it's a very different thing. You want to kind of install a system where you're still rewarding the guys who self-create threes, the Steph Currys, the Damian Lillards. If you're a taller wing player, you can be a Kevin Durant. You can still slide up, hit your top of the key wing threes. But a system that doesn't reward PJ Tucker just for standing in the corner for 36 minutes a game. And what would happen if suddenly you had a system where those players weren't allowed to do that anymore? Or at least they could still shoot those shots, but now it would be the worst shot on the floor because they would be hitting like 40% of a 2-point shot instead of a 3-point shot. And it would force basically anyone standing in that position to cut or to relearn how to post up, which basically no one in the NBA knows how to do anymore. And I think it would be really chaotic. And again, a lot of people would be really mad about it. But I think it would kind of be like maybe turn into a beautiful mesh of old school 80s style basketball that was like entirely inside the arc, where like you go back and watch old clips and like there's no spacing whatsoever. And also the Currys and the Lillards, like bombing it away from 35 feet.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways that changes the geography of the game because like offense is initiated from the top of the key partially because there's two players in each corner and allowing you to sort of spread the floor in that way. I imagine that would shift a lot of the way offenses are initiated to the sides again, which is what it was in the 80s and the 90s, because then the floor could be spread like separately from that, which I think is, I don't know, it's just, that's kind of fascinating to think about.
Look, I'm not saying like we should do it. I like corner threes, but like let's do it in the G League for a year and see what it looks like, right? Like, that would be kind of cool.
The G League did an experiment recently where if you were fouled on a 2-shot foul, you had 1 free throw, and if you made it, you get 2 points, and if you miss it, you get 0 points. So like the idea of changing the game dramatically in the G League as an experiment, it's not totally unheard of. So I don't really mind it.
That's a little bit less of a serious change than what I'm talking about, though. I'm literally talking about going to like Jay Crowder's agent and being like, I am taking all of the money that your client is making now. Thank you. Yeah. You know, like there's think about it, because there's this entire archetype of players who we all just respect this unsaid thing that like these players are valuable because they shoot threes. But like, is there skill in that? I don't know. I mean, I think there's some skill in learning how to be a dead-eye shooter, but also shouldn't we, like we've set up an ecosystem in the NBA now where you can make $15 million a year by just shooting corner threes and being a good defender. You have to defend too.
Yeah.
And whereas if you're like the old school tweener style, bruising in the post, like give it to me and I'll actually go and get a bucket myself. And I'm not even trying to, you know me, I'm like a stat nerd. I'm not even trying to sound like, you know, a hooper kind of ball don't stop style logic, whatever. But we've set up an ecosystem where these guys who do go and do the dirty work and get buckets themselves, there's not a spot for them in the NBA, but there's a spot for someone who stands in a corner for 36 minutes a game.
It's interesting that you say that, because I've been working on this theory mentally where I think 3-point shooting is almost overrated in players like what you're talking about, players that have the ability of creating their own offense. But because on the flip side of that, for role players, it is no longer an option to be a 3-point shooter or not. You just have to be. Like it's a necessity to be a 3-point shooter as a role player in the modern NBA, unless you're a big man. And even those, like a lot of them are shooting threes now too, in a way that it wasn't before, and that's caused the importance of 3-pointers to like skyrocket in people's minds, and the underappreciation of the ability to create your own shot. It's kind of bothered me as of recently. I like it. It's interesting. Let me throw a few at you of mine. And I don't know, maybe this is already part of the recent rule changes, but like the sort of what they've called the Euro foul. It's funny they call it that, but it's the foul on the fast break, an intentional foul to stop a fast break. Get rid of that entirely. If they foul on that, just give them 2 shots in the basket. Just punish it as much as possible. Throw people out for all I care. If they're doing that, just eliminate that happening at all. I hate that specific foul.
I like it.
2, let players touch the ball once it's hit the rim. And I think a lot of the way I talk about specific rules in the NBA, I think, is sort of tipping the scales towards the defense a little bit more. Now, I don't want it to be like 65-70. I don't want games to end at that score. But I want to give defense and players who play good defense a little bit more of an advantage with some of the rule changes going forward. I know he just asked for 1, but I have a few. So that's a FIBA thing, right? Once it hits the rim, let players knock it off. Offensively, too, you could just stuff it in. Take the basket from your teammate, essentially, in those situations. And then finally, and this is more of a conceptual thing, the NBA needs to figure out the disparity of physical contact between players that play close to the rim and players that shoot jump shots. A fingernail, a fingertip, touching the elbow of a shooter shooting at 30 feet away from the rim allows them to shoot 3 free throws, which makes that one foul the most valuable offensive play in the NBA. Fouling a 3-point shooter is literally, offensively, for the player shooting the shot, the most valuable play in the NBA. Because if you shoot free throws at a high rate, you're getting an extremely high amount of points per shot on a fouled 3-pointer. A player playing under the rim will dunk on someone, made or not the dunk, get hit in the face, not a single call. Now, in a sense, if they start calling those, if they start not allowing that level of physicality close to the rim, that sort of tips the scales in the offensive favor once again. But it also brings back big men. Like, big men can play a little differently, sort of adding to what you were talking about with the rule changes that you made. And I like that. But I think in general, the way that the NBA rules benefit shooters and benefit guys who play further away from the rim, it's causing a disparity in the way that basketball players play that could cause a problem in the future where every single player is shooting three-pointers at an extremely high rate. Not now, but in the future, I think it could get worse. And I think the NBA needs to find a way to balance that a little bit better. So those are the three. And also just a random one. Just let players kick the ball on defense. I just want to see it. I think it would be funny if like players are shooting bounce or throwing bounce passes and players are diving trying to kick it with their feet. And I want to see it happen.
We are approaching like a level of this is not basketball anymore now with some of these.
Offensive players are allowed to kick the ball.
Where do you stand? Real quick before we move on, we've got so many more questions to get to. Where do you stand on the Classic? How do you feel about the charge? Do you like the charge?
I think I don't like it. I don't like it. But I have not yet heard an option to fix it that makes the game better, in my opinion. In
a way that does not like eliminate the last thing that gives defenses some kind of edge, right?
Yes.
Because, exactly. I mean, I don't want anyone to get injured in these bang plays. But also I need, like, in order to feel good about watching basketball, I need to know that the defense has a chance. And if you eliminated the charge, they just wouldn't. And that's just not fair. You can't make Giannis a 50-point per game scorer. That's not fair. You can't do that.
Yeah, if people listening
there needs
to
to
this,
be some defense system.
If people listening to this have an idea that to fix that makes sense, let us know. Maybe it'll make sense to us too. But I haven't heard anything that I like when it comes to that. All right, at Midnight Suns fan, Ben said, "No, for real, why is Elfrid Payton on our team?" I think the answer to this is simple. They didn't want Langston Galloway or Etuan Moore playing point guard if Chris Paul or Cameron Payne miss a game. They want a player that at least knows how to play point guard in that sort of break in case of emergency scenario, right?
Yeah, I mean, he just needs to be like a 15th or 14th man. If he can't do that, I mean, I have low expectations of Elfrid, don't get me wrong, guys, but like 14th man, I think he can do.
I think really he's pretty good for that.
I really hope he can do that because if he's shooting even below that, that would be pretty bad. We'll see.
I wonder who's older, Elfrid Payton or Cameron Payne. I'm curious.
It's a good question. I would
Elfrid
guess
Payton's
Elfrid.
27. I think Cam Payne's 26, right?
Cam's 26, I think.
Yeah, so there you go.
Actually,
I was just curious. No, they're both 27.
Elfrid Payton is older than Cam Payne by about half a year.
Ah, there you go. That's just kind of interesting because the Suns have found a way to develop players that most people thought were not very good. Just Cam Payne, really. So, it would be interesting to see what they can do with someone like Elfrid Payton. I'll give the coaching staff a chance there. All right. Okay. Markstoffer Otter, Markstoffer_26 said, "What's a realistic Ben Simmons trade to the Suns that the 76ers would accept? What would you actually offer for him?" So two separate questions there. I don't think, Sam, you didn't come up with any specific trades here, right?
No, I didn't. But part of the reason I didn't isn't that I don't like Ben Simmons or whatever. Ben Simmons is fine. He's a good player. I think we've kind of gone too far in the other direction about shitting on Ben Simmons, but basically all of our understanding of the situation right now is that Daryl Morey is not like seriously interested in negotiating with people. No matter what Ben Simmons' camp says, it doesn't sound like they're ready to have a serious negotiation without asking for like what is beyond a Godfather offer, of which the Suns do not have the assets to make. So, yeah. But by all means, give me your best offer. I'm interested in hearing.
I agree with you. And here's what I'll say is I think it's pretty clear Daryl Morey's trying to hold out in hopes that Damian Lillard asks for a trade and he can somehow force a way to get Damian Lillard on the 76ers and Ben Simmons on the Portland Trailblazers. Now, whether or not that happens, I have no idea. But here's what I did. I just wanted to look at just how the Suns could even do it because Ben Simmons is on a max contract. I believe he's making $33 million in this coming year. So the Suns would have to send relatively equal money back to the 76ers in order to get him. The Suns essentially have 2 trade chips that come even close, and I'm not even saying they get there. I'm saying close to getting someone like Ben Simmons, and that's Mikal Bridges or DeAndre Ayton. So if you were to build a trade around each one of those guys, this is what it would have to look like. Not what I would do, but what it would have to look like. If it were Mikal, it would essentially have to be Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, Dario Saric, and Jalen Smith, because Mikal Bridges makes very little money. So once again, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, Dario Saric, and Jalen Smith for Ben Simmons. Now, would the 76ers accept this? Not in their current state. If they get to the point where nobody's offering anything more, then maybe. I think Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder make them a pretty fascinating team in a lot of ways. As far as the Suns, I don't know if that works. Like, you just put Ben Simmons in there. He can't shoot threes. He's next to DeAndre Ayton. Not a lot of spacing. He's a very, very good player. Whether or not the Suns get better in that scenario, it's fair to doubt that. If it were DeAndre Ayton makes essentially twice as much as Mikal Bridges. So you could do DeAndre Ayton, Jay Crowder, and then one of Dario Saric or Jalen Smith in order to get Ben Simmons. Now, obviously, the 76ers do not want DeAndre Ayton. They have Joel Embiid. So you would need a third team in order to send DeAndre Ayton to that wants DeAndre Ayton more than they want Ben Simmons.
Are you implying that Joel Embiid is better than DeAndre Ayton?
Yes, and that they would be bad together. They would not be good together. It sort of amplifies the Ben Simmons spacing problem with DeAndre Ayton in that place. Can't even dribble. But so that's essentially what they're looking at. Now, would I do either one of these? I don't know. The Mikal, Jay Crowder, Jalen Smith, Dario Saric one is kind of interesting to me.
I'm sorry. No.
But I don't think I would.
Yeah. I don't want to be in a situation of needing Abdul Nader to hit 8 threes a game to like keep the spacing honest. You know what I mean? Simmons is an interesting player. I just don't think our roster is set up in a way that it really works.
Yeah, I think you essentially need a center who shoots threes next to him, the way the Bucks have Brook Lopez. If you have somebody like Brook Lopez, which there's only really one, maybe Porzingis or somebody like that, or Karl Anthony Towns, I guess you could say, then maybe that works. Beyond that, it's tough to build a team around Ben Simmons. The thing is if you do build a team around Ben Simmons, I think they could be really good. But yeah, I don't think the Suns are in the place to make that move. All right. We got a fake trade out of the way.
Does that officially qualify as Mike's trade of the week?
Sure. I think there's another question about a trade. We'll see if we get to it.
We hit the quota. That's all that counts.
Suns fan UK said, does Mikal Bridges make the leap, relevant to, I think, the last question here, to be a third shot creator this coming season? I think that's an interesting question. Like some other ones that we've talked about, I think Sam and I are going to get into this in much more detail in a future episode before the season starts. I'm going to say maybe. What do you think?
Wow. You're really leaving a lot of room for me. Yeah, I think he can, but I would qualify it a little bit because I think there's only so much room he has. It's less about Mikal, who I will always bet on Mikal Bridges' work ethic, and I think it's more about the Suns giving him room to embrace those opportunities.
Feed Mikal?
Yeah. If you want to start the hashtag, I'm cool with that. Feed Mikal. I'm with it. Actually, I like that a lot. I might start using that. Feed Mikal.
I mean, okay. I think it's possible. I think that ball handling wise, he'd have to make some pretty massive leaps, and I haven't seen a ton to make me believe he can do it yet.
Yeah, he also he needs to want layups. That's pretty important. If you want to be like a real shot creator who's respected, you can't just hit mid-range shots. You need to put pressure on the rim, and
be okay with contact.
I've said this about Mikal a million times. So
and let's get into it more later. Let's move on for now.
Yep.
Atanda at one Dreesmatic said, first of all, it's very presumptive the way he worded this question. Would you still be willing to do an Ayton Cat swap? So an Ayton Karl Anthony Towns swap, considering Ayton's displays in the offseason. I think he needs the playoffs.
Yeah, the playoffs. This is a problem with Mike's trade of the week, is that people sometimes remember from week to week.
Oh, you know what? I don't think we've ever talked. I mean, maybe once we've talked about Karl Anthony Towns, Ayton, after his rookie year. I don't think we've talked about it since then.
The one that people, and I'll bring it up because I don't give a shit. It's the off season. Fewer people are listening anyway. The one that people will bring up and like still get mad about is Vucevic. We talked about Vucevic earlier this season. We did do that.
We did.
I did
technically.
I specifically, that is something that came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. The whole purpose of that episode was to make up funny fake trades, and whether or not we would do them is sort of irrelevant because we're dumb. And you're the ones listening to us.
And a secondary goal is to piss people off because it's fun.
Yes. Here's what I'll say about Ayton, Karl Anthony Towns. If you make the argument that the Suns are closer to a title with DeAndre Ayton this season than they are with Karl Anthony Towns, I think you could convince me of that. Because just fit-wise, DeAndre Ayton with Chris Paul and the defense that DeAndre Ayton plays, I think that makes a lot of sense. If we're talking post-Chris Paul, in a way, I still believe the Suns will run into a point with Devin Booker where they need another offensive star next to him after Chris Paul. And Karl Anthony Towns is clearly one guy that could be that. Now, if you're going to say that he could never be a good defender, I think, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting question, whether or not Karl Anthony Towns can be a good defender. A lot of people have pointed at Karl Anthony Towns and said, look at the point of attack defense that he's had to work with. You know, you give somebody much, much, much better point of attack defense in somebody like Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, Chris Paul, and even Devin Booker's improvements in a lot of ways, better than D'Angelo Russell at this point. Can he look better? Yeah, he probably can. And even on a better team where he's more focused, he probably can look better. So I don't think I would do that right now. But I think, thinking about the future of this team and what Karl Anthony Towns could be under a better infrastructure, under a better situation, is kind of an interesting question. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. He's a phenomenal player. I wouldn't do it right now.
Yeah, I
don't really think there's anything else to add to this one, I'll be honest.
Well, I think for some people who there's a lot of Suns fans that only watch the Suns. I just want to let them know Towns is really good. like one of the best offensive big men of all time. And if you just look at his three-point shooting alone, which I think the Suns in star players have lacked because Chris Paul doesn't shoot a lot of them. Devin Booker's not the best three-point shooter. Karl Anthony Towns is one of the best big man shooters of all time. He's putting up Dirk Nowitzki-esque numbers. And when I say Dirk Nowitzki-esque numbers, it's actually closer to Steph Curry-esque numbers. With the amount of attempts and the percentages that he's reached in his career, only players like Steph Curry have really done that. It's kind of a fascinating thing for a big man. But it's an interesting question. I wouldn't do it this year, though. Mike Notham said, actually, this is a good example of something we're going to cover in the future, but I'm going to read the question because it's an interesting question. If you had a 2K-style skill slider for the Suns and you had 100 points that you could allocate across any player's skills you want, which players and what skills are you boosting to improve the team the most? Let's skip answering this one, Sam, and say that we're going to cover this in future episodes. Sound good?
Here's a real quick chance to shame you. Are you going to get 2K22?
Am I? I don't think so. I still played 2K20 until last week when they shut down the servers.
I still play 2K20 even without the servers, and now, and just like continuing my league or whatever. And
I probably will. I always end up doing it and feeling ashamed of myself.
Yeah. Sorry guys, can't do it. But to our credit, so we've never even talked about this, but we're both on the same page of like once every other year is better than every year.
Yeah.
I think we deserve a round of applause for that.
At Matt _Krell said, since the guys at the mismatch didn't answer, maybe you guys can. Shout out KOC, friend of the pod. Why hasn't there been more national coverage of the Jason Kidd, Larry Sanders stuff that came to light from the Giannis book? Seems like a big deal that this guy made a guy retire. We don't know that Jason Kidd made Larry Sanders retire, but he sure made Larry Sanders' life a living hell right before Larry Sanders retired. And it is kind of interesting that hasn't been a big story. Maybe a lot of the writers already knew about it. I don't know.
Newsflash, Jason Kidd is an asshole. Sorry to break it to you guys. It's just like, it's a thing. Jason Kidd is an asshole. I think we know that now. Now, that has no bearing on his, Hall of Fame career as a player or whatever, his, not exactly Hall of Fame career so far as a coach, where he hasn't had as much success. But yeah, there's a lot of stories, personally, swirling around this guy that are not surprising to people who've worked in the league for a long time. And I think the reason maybe certain people aren't digging deeper and asking questions and building it up into a bigger story is very simple. It's about, if you're a national reporter, you want access to every team equally, and teams can very quickly cut off access to those who do a little bit too much digging. I hate to go all like conspiracy theory, because I agree with that. That's not even really what I'm saying, but it's like, the Dallas Mavericks made a stupid decision to hire a guy who was a PR nightmare. And now they want any media coverage surrounding the team. Naturally, every PR person around the league wants the questions framed to be about the on-court operations of the Dallas Mavericks. They don't want the hiring stuff to follow them any longer than it has to. So reporters are afraid to challenge that. Yeah.
And I think this podcast has remained... We tend to have that sort of blog boy energy, right? We don't go to the games. We don't talk to the coach. We don't talk to the players. Like,
I don't even watch the games.
Yeah, we don't
I just look at the box scores and Twitter, and then
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I sort by VORP. And then I make all my opinions based on where they land up in VORP. What I mean by that is we can come onto a podcast and we can say Jason Kidd's an asshole.
You're right.
And we don't have to worry about pissing anybody off, because we don't have relationships to maintain here. Now, is that good?
Trust us.
I don't know.
Trust us, you guys. No one respects us.
Yes, exactly.
As it is.
Exactly. The point is people think we're a joke, and you still listen to us. So it says more about you than us, really.
Yeah. Next question.
What? Okay, this is from Mathkitball. Okay. I just had to make sure I was saying that right. What are your thoughts on a potential Marquise Chris reunion down the line? Bad blood and all. What do you think?
Bad blood and all. I guess deep down, do we think Marquise Chris has an issue with the Phoenix Suns organization being... I mean, he must have a problem with
Sarver?
Right, that's what I was going to say. It's like, maybe he has a problem with McDonough. Does he have that deep-seated of an issue with Robert Sarver? Such a beef that he would never come back?
Maybe. Robert Sarver is known to say horrible things to people.
First of all, the Marquise Chris is not a good enough player that I really care one way or another.
No, yeah, it's true.
It's
true.
Like,
but
I will
say this, and it's sort of the same thing applies to Jalen Smith. If you can develop this archetype correctly, having a big man who could potentially protect the rim and shoot threes and still attack the rim on rolls is extremely valuable as a role player, not necessarily as a star. Of course, as a star, it'd be valuable. But I just talked about Brook Lopez. If you're building a team with a guy like Ben Simmons, you need a guy like Brook Lopez. Marquise Chris could be a guy like that if it's developed properly. Who knows how he's going to look coming off this injury. Started to look pretty good, I think, for the Warriors before that. Not like a starter level good, but like a backup player good. And, if he develops, it's a nice player to have. So I wouldn't mind it. I don't know that he has any thoughts about Robert Sarver, but, as far as bad blood, I don't think he has bad blood against anybody else. No Devin Booker bad blood, I imagine. I remember when Booker blocked his shot and they were laughing at each other. Booker got a technical foul from it. It was funny. They clearly are friends still. I think Marquise Chris was one of the 7. For those who figure out what I'm talking about there, good for you. Beyond that, let's move on to the next question.
Oh my God, he was one of the 7.
T at Furty said, "Where is Thad Young most likely to end up?"
Was Dragan Bender one of the 7?
I hope not. Let's move on. Where is Thad Young likely to end up? If the Suns are able to get him, how significantly does having an Ayton, Young, McGee rotation improve this team? Pretty significantly, I would say. Do you have any thoughts on where Thad Young is most likely to end up?
in Phoenix, baby, right where he belongs.
Can I say this?
Get it done. Yes.
If he gets bought out, I have no faith he's coming to the Suns. And that's because every single player that's ring chasing has gone to the Lakers and Nets. And that's most likely to happen with any player that gets bought out.
Where is the playing time? I've lost track of the Lakers' depth chart, honestly. Is Marc Gasol even still on their team?
I think so.
Is he buried somewhere behind 6 different centers?
Yeah. They're trying to force him to retire, I think.
I mean, I would take him. I think he's still playable in the regular season. I'd take him.
Marc Gasol? Yeah. Over Jalen Smith?
Oh, God. I hate that I just did that, but maybe. But with that, I mean, look.
Over Frank, yes.
Thad's really good. So he would play on the Lakers, unfortunately.
And he'd play on the Nets, too.
Would he? They just got Millsap.
I mean, they did. I just think, and they also got LaMarcus Aldridge, by the way.
We need to get someone.
Yeah.
We need to get someone, but I think
I am disappointed with the fact that none of these guys looked at the Suns as realistic contenders, and it's because of the star power on both of the Nets and the Lakers teams that they are not looking at the Suns as that. I mean, none of these guys really did. And I'm just disappointed in that. And yes, the Suns have less minutes, but like the Nets don't have a ton either. The Lakers don't have a ton either. Like they're all going to be fighting for minutes at this point. It's just a little disappointing. Anything else on that one?
Now let's move on.
All right. At Suns Addict said, "What/who is the biggest threat to the Phoenix's West crown and why?" So who's the biggest threat to come out of the West besides the Phoenix Suns? I would say it's pretty clearly the Los Angeles Lakers, and I think the reasons are obvious.
Agreed.
What do you think?
100% agreed. I can't even argue with you. Skip style or Stephen A style.
Yeah. Okay. Josh at XX420 NoScope 69X. It really sounds like I made that up. I didn't. What are some non-Suns teams you'll be looking forward to watching next season? I'll shout out some just real quick, and then you can go here. I'm excited to watch the Cleveland Cavaliers for a few reasons. Rubio's on that team now. I liked them last year, and I think they could be kind of interesting going forward. I always tend to watch at least one really bad team. I think it's from years and years and years of watching the Suns. And that team tends to be the OKC Thunder. For some reason, I just keep watching the Thunder. I find them to be an interesting team. I will continue to watch them. Beyond that, I'm also excited to see what Kyle Lowry looks like on the Heat.
Yeah.
And then I haven't really thought about the rest of the league. I'm sure there will be other teams that catch my eye. I do like to watch like the Charlotte Hornets because they have a fun team, play really fast, have interesting announcers, a good coach. That kind of thing. But what do you think?
I was going to mention the Hornets. The other one, it's funny how we're mentioning mostly Eastern teams. I think that's because we don't mind when Eastern teams, for the most part, are good. I mean, obviously you need to like beat them in the finals ultimately, but like we don't mind if a team goes a little further than they should because they don't feel like competition. The Chicago Bulls are going to be
that's a good one.
Super interesting to watch. I mean, it's between Zach LaVine, Vucevic, DeMar, Lonzo, Caruso, who they added. It's a lot of talent. There is a lot of talent on that roster. Now, is it quite enough talent to get into the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference? My suspicion is no. It's kind of a lot of number 2 type guys and not necessarily a true number 1, at least not that we've seen from Zach LaVine yet. But I mean, you have to be at least intrigued with that, I think.
Yeah.
I'll be really interested in watching them play.
I like it. Brendan Blake, we're almost done, Sam. Brendan Blake said, "When will Cam Johnson start?" Another presumptive question, but actually kind of interesting because I found myself thinking about this lately as well. Is the offensive kick that Cam Johnson could potentially provide to the starting lineup, is there a point where that becomes more valuable than the defense that Jay Crowder brings to the starting lineup? And also, beyond that, as our friend David Nash has documented relatively well, the difference in Jay Crowder's shooting with the starting lineup compared to the bench, because he tends to make more shots when they're wide open and you get more open shots with the starters, that difference also factors in as well. Do you think Cameron Johnson starts any games this season?
So here's something that's interesting about three-point shooting. My answer initially is no. I think he can get there if he improves some facets of his game. But with three-point shooting specifically, when you shoot only as well as Cam Johnson did, and we know Cam's a good shooter, but he wasn't a lights-out 40-45% three-point shooter last year. He just wasn't. He was literally a 35% three-point shooter. And when you're shooting at that level, it's less about percentage and it's more about volume. You just want guys who keep the defense honest by firing away as many open threes as they possibly can. I think what's really interesting when you look at Cam and Jay Crowder's stat pages, which I pulled up here, per 36 minutes, Cam Johnson shot 8.5 threes last year. Jay Crowder shot 8.3. So you have two guys who basically took the same volume of three-pointers last year, even though in our heads we think of Cam Johnson as this otherworldly shooter sometimes, I guess because of his draft reputation, and I feel like that same reputation hasn't followed Jay Crowder. But in practice, if Cam Johnson wants to earn minutes over Jay, really what he has to do is he just has to become more of an overall force offensively. And so that means, A, he needs to attack more closeouts. He needs to get not necessarily to his mid-range spots, but driving the ball, getting dump-off opportunities, proving that he can be like a tertiary kind of pressure release valve built into the offense that Jay Crowder can't be. That's the first thing. But then he can't be only shooting as many threes on a permanent basis as Jay. He needs to be chucking them, and like chucking them well, like, 11 or 12 threes per 36 or whatever. Like, he really needs to be a go-to sharp shooting option for the Suns in the offense, and I just feel like he hasn't asserted himself like that. If he can get to that level of assertion, then maybe he has a chance to start over Jay, but for now I don't see it.
I agree with that. I think in a sense you're sort of describing what Harrison Barnes was to the Warriors before Kevin Durant got there. In a lot of ways he needs to sort of embrace his Harrison Barnes-esque style of play, become more of a Swiss Army knife, less of a specialist in order to do that, because Jay Crowder brings a lot in his two specialties, which is shooting a lot and playing defense against tough players. I just, out of curiosity while you were talking, I brought up the lineup statistics for 2020-2021, and I filtered by lineups with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, and DeAndre Ayton. I filtered by net rating to figure out who the best fifth player was with those four players. Do you want to guess who the best fifth player was in net rating with the starters, if you take out, if that Jay Crowder role is sort of the one you're figuring out?
Was it Cam Johnson?
It was Torrey Craig.
Oh, wow.
With Torrey Craig as the power forward, the Suns had a net rating of 11.2.
How many minutes?
107 minutes. So not a small sample size,
not a ton,
not a large
not
one.
Terrible.
Either.
Yeah.
Number 2 was Cameron Johnson, and in 197 minutes at a 10.1 net rating. So technically the Suns were better with Cameron Johnson. Number 3, you're going to hate this, Frank Kaminsky.
Oh, okay.
A 7.3 net rating in a surprisingly large amount, 164 minutes.
I mean, it defied science. There was a reason they kept starting Frank, is because they kept winning games for that stretch of the season.
Yep. It was like, I don't know. It was like confusing. There's a scene in Shang-Chi. Forgive me for bringing up a movie that just came out.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Where one of the characters says she was about to get in a fight, and she started screaming the lyrics to Hotel California into the face of the person that was about to fight her, and it confused them. And the whole point was sometimes you can confuse people, and that's what Frank Kaminsky was. He was just there to confuse the other team and make them question everything that they were doing, and somehow that led to wins. But number 4 in this list is Jay Crowder. Now, here's the difference, and here's why these stats aren't that important. 706 minutes. So the sample size with Jay Crowder is so much larger, and still has a positive net rating of plus 4.7. And factor in the fact that Jay Crowder is usually on the floor against guys named LeBron James, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, stuff like that. And those numbers start to make a little more sense. It's kind of an interesting question. I don't know. I think there's a chance that Cameron Johnson is starting at points in this coming season. I don't think it's a guarantee, though.
Well, there are obviously points. It's possible that he starts at points. I just question, if you get a healthy Jay Crowder, is he going to start over a healthy Jay Crowder at any point in the season? I'm not sure. We'll see. He'd have to earn it. He could certainly earn it. It would just take a lot.
Okay, let's see. Okay, last serious question. There's some fun ones that we can throw in at the end here. I don't know how to pronounce this name, actually. Joe? Barros. Sorry. What would you give up for Brandon Ingram? This is another trade that I could not figure out a way for it to make sense, specifically for the Pelicans. Brandon Ingram makes $29 million this coming season. The two Suns assets, once again, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton. Obviously, they wouldn't want Ayton. It would have to be Ayton, Dario, and Jalen Smith or something like that. No chance they do that, not with Zion. If it were Mikal, it would have to be Jay Crowder, Dario Saric, Mikal Bridges, and Jalen Smith. And yeah, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. I like Brandon Ingram, but not that much. I think maybe I like him a little less than other people do. I don't really see a way of this making sense. Do you see any way that trading for Brandon Ingram, either now or in the future, makes any sense?
Yeah, the way I tend to fall back on trusting the analysis of people who cover teams full time, because I feel like people should trust me when I talk about the Suns, so I'm willing to go out on a limb and trust them when they talk about the Pelicans, whoever it may be. Just the way some Pelicans people talk about Ingram behind the scenes scares me. I'm not really there on wanting to go all out for a trade like that.
Yeah, I
not
agree.
that he's not a good player, but
yeah, I think he's a fascinating prospect with his size, his length, and his ability to create for himself. Like, he could end up being like one of the better players in the NBA if he finds a way to develop his decision making a little bit better. So it's kind of an interesting question. A few fun ones before we end here. If you guys are only listening to us to get our basketball takes, we'll see you next week. If you're listening to us because you find us interesting, let's talk about these questions real quick. Our friend Bread at Don's Bread said, cast the Suns in the Fast and Furious franchise.
I just saw Fast 9 this week. I think that's why he's asking. Did you see it, by the way?
I did.
It came out?
I saw it in theaters.
It's pretty good.
It's not bad. It's not. I think it
it
kind of peaked.
Not bad.
I think the whole franchise peaked when they were fighting a submarine with cars, like a nuclear submarine, by the way. I think that was kind of the peak.
I don't know,
of the franchise,
dude.
But
I was kind of skeptical about the whole, they're going to space, but like, it was pretty fucking cool.
That was funny. That was funny, but like, to me, Jason Statham and The Rock added something to those movies, and taking them out takes something away a little bit.
Jason Statham and The Rock are the best actors who have been in the series, and so for neither of them to be in Fast 9 was definitely a disappointment. This is slanderous, but I have to do it. So, Devin Booker is Vin Diesel, right?
He's totally Dom. Dominic Toretto, Devin Booker. I mean, for one, Devin Booker doesn't talk that much.
He's the totally stoic, like,
yes,
kind of has the. Yeah, I'm not going to say anymore. He's stoic.
Let's just say this. He's not overly charismatic, his personality.
Right.
And not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way. Devin Booker, like, always says the right thing. He's great, with all of his charitable causes. He's like, but he's a chill guy. But yeah, he's not like a. Yeah. He's Dom Toretto.
He's a Dominic Toretto.
He's Dom Toretto.
He's a Dominic Toretto. Now, Roman, who is Tyrese Gibson. That's Ayton, right? Like, Ayton's kind of funny, kind of goofy.
I don't know. I mean, it could be Mikal. Could be Mikal, too. I think of, like, Tyrese and Ludacris as, like, Mikal and Ayton. Like, you can interchangeably. Those two are sort of those guys. Yeah.
The tough one for me was figuring out who Chris Paul would be. Like, part of me thinks it's The Rock, the Luke Hobbs character, because he showed up later, and he's sort of, like, a huge personality and sort of takes over the movies in a lot of ways. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
I mean, it depends if you want to, like, talk about in reference to the beginning or the end of the series. Is Chris Paul Brian?
Is that Paul Walker's character?
Yeah, Paul Walker's character.
That's kind of interesting.
He's like, because the whole thing is like Brian is still alive in the universe. He's just like actually
he has kids.
He's like actually he's actually being a responsible adult who retired and like has a family while all the other all the rest of the gang is doing nonsense supposedly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of Chris Paul.
I'll take that.
Also, so you saw Fast 9.
I did.
So Donovan Mitchell is John Cena's character, which is the half-brother of Vin Diesel, who's Devin Booker, which all Suns fans hate right now. but are guaranteed to come around on in 3 years' time when
Donovan asks for a trade.
When he asks for a trade from Utah, and suddenly all Suns fans want him.
And people get really mad at me when I talk about trades to get Donovan Mitchell on the Suns.
I'm sorry, by the way. I'm sorry if anyone hasn't seen Fast 9. I feel like we didn't do any crazy spoilers there. But
it's pretty clear that they made John Cena a bad guy in a way that he could join them in the future, the way Jason Statham's Shaw character did. By the way, who killed, as far as they knew, who killed Han. I don't know. It's a funny movie. Any other thoughts on that one?
Frank Kaminsky's Gal Gadot. That's my last take.
What?
And now I don't know. Now we can move on.
Okay. Do you have any controversial food takes? This is from Jordan.
Do you want to start on this
Karchner.
one?
I don't really have one.
Really?
I don't think I do.
Nothing.
I don't know. I mean, like, I don't really think I do. I don't think I don't know. I guess other people might think they're controversial, and to me, they're just not. But I've never had one that other people call me out for or anything like that. So I don't know. What do you have one?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not a picky eater whatsoever. I eat almost anything. So it's like, it's kind of rare for me to be like truly disgusted by something. I'll say, like, it depends. It's kind of like a regional thing. Like, I'll say up here, like, if you're a ranch over blue cheese person, I definitely judge you. And there are members of Suns Twitter who I judge. You know who you are. Mm-hmm. I judge you about that. Also, here's one. Cake kind of sucks. Like,
yeah,
almost,
I kind of agree with that.
Almost unilaterally. I feel like there's certain things that you... So I guess that's not controversial because I was expecting you to disagree with me.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
There's certain things that's like, you're not a kid anymore. You don't have as much of a sweet tooth. But like I never grew out of ice cream. I could fuck up some ice cream right now. But cake sucks. It's just like, it's not good. It's a weird consistency. If I was offered like a pie for dessert over a cake, I'd take the pie any day. And it almost doesn't matter what the flavor is. I just would.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the one I could say for me is I didn't really grow up eating seafood, so I don't really like it.
And any seafood?
But I grew up in the desert, so I don't feel like that's that weird. Maybe if I grew up in California or I grew up on the East Coast somewhere, I'd be more into seafood, but I don't know. I don't really like it. It's not really controversial, though.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't like seafood.
Yeah, it's, seafood's pretty specific. I do find shrimp to be kind of repulsive. Maybe that's controversial. It's just they look like bugs. Like it legitimately seems like people are eating they're eating cockroaches of the ocean to me, I guess, for shrimp. So there's my controversial food take. Shrimp are gross.
Yeah, but cockroaches of the ocean, they're pretty good, man. I'm not like a lobster person whatsoever. I've had lobster a couple times in my life just for the experience, and I'm like, I don't really get why people do this, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. People like stuff partially because it's expensive sometimes. Last question, I think, from Cody Hunt, friend of the podcast. What would happen if all current Suns players had to battle to the death in the Hunger Games?
I don't like this.
Which players would form alliances? Who would be the first to die? Who would be killed by nature rather than by another player? Funny question there. Who would be the best archer? Who would win? I have one thought on this, and that is Chris Paul would clearly win because he's psychotic. And, show me someone who's okay with losing, I'll show you a loser. Chris Paul's not going to lose this. That's my only thought. What do you think?
But the scary thing, so I don't feel comfortable like pitting these guys against each other like this because it's kind of a weird conversation. But I will say, like, not only would Chris Paul win, but he would be charismatic enough in the beginning to trick people into like forming a coalition.
He would have thought all about it. Yeah,
and he would be 2 steps ahead of everyone else the entire time. Yep,
exactly. Yep, I agree with that. All right, thank you everyone for providing questions for us this week. We appreciate you guys. If you stuck around to the end of this one, thank you for listening. Mailbags tend to be extra long. We'll be back. We have some ideas for our next few podcasts that I think you guys will be into. We're not that far away from preseason and then the season beginning. Thank you guys once again for listening. We'll be back soon.